Welcome to Check This Out as we dive into the first episode in our series on the first 7 presidents of the United States in honor of President's Day. My name is Amy Contreras.
And I'm Cece.
And today we have a special guest joining us.
Hey y'all, I'm Bonnie.
Bonnie's going to help us with a few of our episodes. Today we're going to spend right around 7 minutes learning all about the presidency and the impact of the first president of the United States,
George Washington.
If you want to learn more about his life and his role in the Revolutionary War, check out episode 10. In the meantime,
let's get into it.
George Washington was unanimously elected president of the United States twice. He served as president from 1789 to 1797.
That's a big job.
He established the tradition of serving only 2 terms as president and establishing a cabinet of advisors.
What's that?
Great question, Cece. Check this out. The cabinet is a group of advisors to the president. The current cabinet has 16 people, but Washington's cabinet of advisors was only 4. They were
the Secretary of State, Thomas Jefferson,
the Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton,
Secretary of War, Henry Knox,
and Attorney General Edmund Randolph. Washington defined how these roles would interact, establishing the cabinet as the president's private, trusted advisor.
I learned something new today.
I'm glad. George Washington had a tricky job as the first president because he defined the role for all future generations. He had to figure out where to live, his responsibilities, his social schedule with First Lady Martha Washington, his diplomatic responsibilities, traditions, and basically create the job while he was doing it.
That must have been hard.
It was.
True or false? George Washington lived in the White House during his time as president.
The answer is false.
That's right. George Washington never actually lived in Washington, D.C.
What?
Yeah. In July of 1790, Congress established the capital city of the United States to be located on the Potomac River. This is what would eventually be Washington, D.C. Washington oversaw the building of the capital city, which included the White House and the Capitol.
Whoa!
Yeah, the White House wasn't ready for people to live in it until 1800, when second President John Adams moved in.
Here's a fun fact.
Washington, D.C. was named after George Washington while he was still alive in 1791.
That is cool.
We agree. But building and establishing the capital city wasn't all he had to do as president. He had a lot to do.
Let's recap some of his achievements.
There was a war between Great Britain and France, but Washington didn't want to get involved, so he issued a proclamation of neutrality in 1793.
In 1794, there was a threat known as the Whiskey Rebellion. It threatened the stability of our new government. The rebellion was trying to challenge the newly established United States. Washington organized a militia force of about 13,000 men and personally led them to stop the rebellion.
Washington formalized the Thanksgiving holiday as president.
Washington also started the tradition of the inaugural address and the cabinet. Neither were in the Constitution.
Well, while Washington was president, Congress passed the first naturalization law, which established the terms of citizenship in the United States.
In partnership with Alexander Hamilton, Washington signed a bill that the federal government would assume the Revolutionary War debts of the states. This helped establish our national bank.
And in 1791, the states officially ratified the first 10 amendments to the Constitution.
Do you know what the first 10 amendments are also known as? Is it A, the Big Ten, B, the Declaration of Independence, or C, the Bill of Rights? If you said C, the Bill of Rights, you're right.
George Washington got a lot done, but his presidency wasn't without its challenges.
Like what, Mama?
The new U.S. had lots of fights with the indigenous tribes, specifically in the Battle of Fallen Timbers in 1794. Washington had to send troops to fight 7 different indigenous tribes. There was also a war between Britain and France and issues with Spain. This pulled Washington's cabinet in a lot of different directions, as people had deep opinions on whether or not the United States should be involved.
That must have been hard.
Before he retired from the presidency, Washington gave a famous farewell address in 1796. He cautioned against political factions and foreign entanglements. George Washington is remembered as a founding father, general in the Revolutionary War, and the first president of the United States. He laid the foundation for the U.S. government, and in many ways, he defined the presidency.
And here are a few final fun facts.
Tell us.
Washington only vetoed 2 bills while he was president of the United States.
George Washington had teeth problems his whole life. There is a famous fable that he had dentures made of wood, but this was not true. His dentures were made of real teeth. Some were his own pulled teeth, the teeth of enslaved people, or teeth he purchased from dentists. And he treated his teeth problems as a state secret while he was president.
Kind of like the teeth, many popular myths about George Washington are false, including the legend of him chopping down a cherry tree.
And George Washington wasn't a very winning military leader. In fact, he lost way more battles than he won.
And to wrap it up, George Washington was 6'2".
Wow, that's tall.
What was your favorite fact?
We could keep going, but we promised you a mini episode. So with that, we say,
Thanks for listening.
Farewell.
make sure to subscribe. Sources for this week's episode are Mount Vernon, History.com, the Smithsonian, UVA Miller Center, and Encyclopedia Britannica.
See you next episode.